My next guest has got a really big fight coming up here against Chris Weidman in a rematch coming up here at UFC 258 on February 13th. It is Uriah Hall joining me here on the program. Uriah, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, brother. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining me, man. Really liked your interview with Mike Heck, who's a good buddy of mine over at MMA Fighting. You guys got into a lot of different stuff. And I know one of the things you sort of touched on was, just your work in the community and just, the way you're sort of respected as well. And, it's funny because I talk to a lot of fighters, Uriah, and they speak very highly of you because you've trained, I know, at a bunch of different camps. I wanted to know, were you aware of that, you have sort of this reputation of being like a really good training partner and things like that? And if so, how does that make you feel knowing that there's a lot of fighters out there who just really want to see you succeed?
Actually, I was not aware of that at all. That's actually pretty dope and cool. I really just try to be myself as much as I can, especially in a new environment. I know there's a lot of egos at new gyms, and a guy like me going in there with a name, whether it's up and coming or other guys like, oh, let me test them. And I'm fine with that, but, I usually put my ego aside and try to help them or, and I'll beat them up and be like, hey, man, that was cool. Let's add this, because listen, for the martial arts aspect of it, it's about giving back and it's about sharing knowledge because I'm a martial artist first and I want to kind of learn and gain and see what I can get from people and hopefully help, return the favor. So I let go of my ego most of the time. But man, I thank those guys. I don't really know who those guys are, but I guess I left a good impression.
Yeah, well, there's just, some fighters I've talked to from New York and in Vegas, because I know you've been at a bunch of different camps, and usually when I ask them about your fight or anything, they're like, yeah, I want to see Uriah do well. So I thought that was cool. I didn't know if you were aware of that, so good to know. One of the things you've obviously talked about is, finding a lot of structure at Fortis MMA, and that's really, improved your game. Sayif is a great coach. I mean, we know he's a hard coach, but he's a coach that will give you that structure. We've seen improvements, like I said, in your fight game, but what about outside the cage as a person? I know Sayif sort of goes a bit above and beyond and, will help you guys out, not just, in the octagon, but outside as well. How much of a person, as a person, have you grown since working with Sayif?
I couldn't ask for a better coach, a better mentor. I have a lot of coaches. Had a lot of coaches in my life, had a lot of father figures, still do, but he just kind of took me under his wing. And, in the beginning, it was a little bit different. I felt like we had to find each other's rhythm. It's kind of like dancing, I'm stepping in his toes, vice versa. He's telling me, well, I don't want you to kick. I'm a kicker. He's telling me to keep my hands this way, a certain way. I'm like, but I don't feel good. So it was finding each other's rhythm. And at one point, I submitted myself to the training. And the moment I did that, I stepped outside my comfort zone, and then I had to just learn to take what he gave me, add to my attributes, and overall, I was just doing this. And outside the octagon, of course, what I love about him, he talks a little bit more about like gaining other knowledge from a business standpoint. As an athlete, we know we can't do this forever, so let's solidify our mark inside the octagon, and let's build our legacy inside the octagon. But outside, let's have people recognize that so we can grow and build, whether it's owning a gym, whether it's me loving the idea of doing anti-bullying campaigns. He's a realist, and he'll call me out on my shit. Not that no one has ever had, but he's very structured at it, and I build so much respect for him, and I'm extremely grateful to have him in my corner.
You had a great quote in that interview, and I'm going to read it here. You says, giving instructions to my demons, sort of talking about really just, eliminating all the things that are getting in your way. We talked about Sayif being an influence. What are some other ways that you've been able to navigate through that in terms of instructing your demons? Is it, self-help books? Is it, because everyone's different when it comes to, trying to get in those good habits. What for you is sort of your go-to?
Well, what I've learned that everyone is different, and someone could read something and it could work for them and they can spread the knowledge. It might not hit everybody, but it can hit that one person. It's the same reason that we all hear tunes differently. You might like some type of music. I'll listen to it, but like, what the hell am I listening to? We all have our own way of hearing stuff, our own fine tuning of hearing stuff. So I personally believe that. Man, I jumped off the question a little bit.
No. You were just, I was just asking you basically like what are some tools that you use to sort of instruct your demons, so to speak, like you were saying?
So, during the pandemic was one of those highlight moments of my life where I had to step outside my comfort zone completely, do some things that I think I couldn't do, whether it's living in the gym, whether it's knowing that my apartment is back in Las Vegas and I had the Airbnb for like 6 months, and I was spending back and forth money and the fights were canceled and I had to keep that momentum going. My mindset I had to keep. And I'm not going to lie, a couple of times I lost motivation. And, the old school mentality was like, we never quit no matter what. And there were times I had to call my coach, Clayton Hires, and he had to motivate me to be like, listen, man, this doesn't last forever. And it's one of those episodes where you're going to look back and be like, you know, you guys didn't quit. So the mental aspect is very important. And what I had to learn to do is to face the negative, you know, not run away from it, not become a victim. I know COVID is happening, but I didn't give it power. I knew there's a virus running around. I didn't give it power. I didn't say, oh, my God, I got to be careful. Yeah, follow the basics, follow the guidelines, stay away from people, do what I need to do, stay clean. But I didn't become a victim to allow that fear to take over. I still remain on course, and I still did the basics. We invited like 2 or 3 people in. We were training late at night because, you know, gyms were closed. I mean, the lights were off. It was like ninja training. So we adjusted to it. The genius thing we didn't do was quit. But I look at it this way. There's motivation and there's inspiration. So motivation is like making your bed. It's something you have to constantly do, right? And there's some days you're not going to feel motivated. There's some days you're not going to make your bed. Inspiration is like being locked in. So if you have a kid, you know, you're inspired naturally to protect that kid. So at any given moment, if you have to shut down the world to protect that kid, it's a given. It's nothing you have to think about. It's locked in. So I think I had to learn what's my motivation, what's my inspiration. My motivation is waking up every day and, you know, doing what I love to do. But sometimes those days suck. And that inspiration part of me was like, listen, there's a goal that I started and I can't quit because my mindset is on that motto and I have to reach it no matter what. It might take me a longer period. It might take me shorter. However, I cannot lose that focus. And I just decided to stick with that and ran with that as much as I can.
You mentioned 2020 being an interesting year. You know, your fight with Anderson Silva was one of the highlights for sure. Just the, you know, the way it unfolded, the finish. I know you're very emotional after the fight. Obviously, a lot of respect for Anderson. I know you've always wanted to train with Anderson Silva. After the fight, did you guys ever have that conversation?
We did. You know, I actually reached out to him on Instagram. In the octagon, he was more of just saying, listen, train your mind. You're a good athlete. You've achieved a lot. This is your moment. Take your moment and, you know, learn to enjoy each moment because each moment's going to pass, whether it's good or bad. So I took that from him. But, you know, someone asked me, did it feel good to be the last person that competed against him, to defeat him? Was that the highlight moment? But looking back, more of the highlight moment was to train with him because that's all I wanted. You know, I wanted to train with him. And, you know, reaching out to him afterwards, hitting him on Instagram and him saying, of course, you know, I would love to train with you. That made me feel a lot better than, of course, the fight, you know, because there's a lot of emotions in there. I respected him. But the fact that I get to do that, hopefully soon, to me is a blessing because I always wanted to move around with him and stuff.
September 24th, 2010, Ring of Combat 31. That was the first fight you had with Chris Weidman. Now we got the rematch coming up here. I know you talked about in an interview with Mike, you know, about that loss and made you want to go, you know, do different training and stuff like that. But I wanted to know, you know, do you feel like that loss helped contribute to your success on The Ultimate Fighter just, you know, a few fights later, you know, having to learn those lessons early and kind of, you know, make some adjustments?
I think that fight played a part in itself at the given time in my life. You know, I look at it this way. Every chapter in your life demands a better version of you or a tougher version of you. I lost to Chris Weidman, then I lost to his teammate Costa Philippou. And, you know, there were times where I was like, yeah, maybe this is not for me. And I was like maybe 26, 27, doubting myself saying, yeah, I should give up. And that's what those negative affirmation, that's what losing does to people. It starts to make you doubt yourself, especially when you have a consistent rate back to back. So it was my first loss. And, you know, second, I trained my ass off. It ended up not happening. I had some doubts, and luckily I had to regain myself because the martial arts way, again, was to never quit. It took me a while. I got over the hump. I couldn't even watch the fight because, you know, I never lost before. Going into the Ultimate Fighter was more like a different type of motivation. I got fired from my job, which I worked for, you know, maybe over a decade, if not a decade. And it's all I knew, you know. I dedicated my whole life to that job. I was a full-time instructor. I was a full-time fighter. So that's all I knew. So when I got fired, I didn't know what to do. It was almost like a new chapter. I didn't have no guidelines or nothing. And I remember sitting on my bed getting an email saying, hey, season 17 is coming up. You should try out for it. And I remember this overwhelming feeling like, this is it. This is my do or die. And I tried out, you know, over 800 people, bought a one-way ticket. I had nowhere to come back. So it was like a way of saying, listen, I have to make this. And fortunately, they were, you know, counting down at the end of the night. It was like maybe 1 o'clock in the night. And it started at 8 a.m., if not earlier. And at 1 a.m, they were like, all right, thank you guys for coming out. Unfortunately, we can't really accept everybody. And they called around maybe 60 people. And they were like, this doesn't mean that you suck. It just means that you have to come back and there are other people with better criteria or whatever. And as they're calling the names and people getting excited and they got to 15 and I'm like, fuck, how am I even going to get home, And I think I was number 22 or 23 and they called my name and I was just like, oh my God, I made it. And it's been a journey ever since.
Yes, that's why this fight's so interesting too. You both, you and Chris, have had obviously a lot of things, since that first fight happened in terms of, career highlights and things of that nature. I wanted to know, did you catch Chris's last fight against Omari Akhmedov? And if so, what did you think of his performance?
I did not catch it. I just heard a lot of people were disappointed in it. And, it is what it is. They're saying that you're only as good as your last fight. For me to go out there and underestimate Chris Weidman would probably be a really stupid thing to do. Same way as Anderson Silva. People are using the age factor. I'm like, the guy's a legend. The guy's a beast. Why don't you go out there and tell me how you do? So I'm not going to undermine him. I have nothing bad to say about him. In fact, me and Matt Serra are really great friends. Every time we're in New York, he invites me to UFC Unfiltered. So, he's in the same realm as me. We're both lions in a room filled with lions chasing that gazelle. He had the gazelle. He lost it, and maybe he's trying to get it back. Who knows? We saw him at a certain prime in his life where he was doing well. Sometimes that hunger could die. I don't know, but I'm not using his last fight to say, oh, this should be an easy win. I'm using my training, my attributes, my dedication, and, of course, my goal that I have in mind to get to a place I've never been, which is, championship.
Do you typically not watch tape on your opponents and just leave that up to your coaches?
I used to, but I don't as much as I should because I don't focus too much on theirs. But I'll pick one thing, like when I fought Gegard Mousasi and my coach was like, you need to watch tape. And I'm like, all right. And I watched the tape. He fought Lyoto Machida. And I saw Lyoto Machida do one thing. And I was like, oh, there it is. And that's all I need. I just need one thing. I saw that when Machida did some type of flinch, he kind of did a little duck. And I was like, oh, I just got to flinch. And that's how I knocked him out. I did a little, and he ducked, and it couldn't have been any perfect. Gegard is actually a good friend of mine, so props to him. But my coach right now, Sayif, he wants me to watch. We'll sit down, we'll watch together. We'll pick a couple things, but I try not to overwhelm myself because I want to be in there. I want to try to figure it out. It's my own personal goal to go out there and figure it out. Absolutely, a win is important, and I'll take what my coach tells me to do, and we'll work on it, of course. But I like to go in there and kind of, fight through that adversity a little bit and have a little fun with it. It's a crazy moment that we get to spend in that realm, which probably 98% of the world will never understand. Actually, 95, because only 5% of the population could do this shit. But they will never understand that little highlight moment of being in there to kind of play chess with someone else's life, And for me, I try to enjoy that dangerous, crazy moment as much as I can.
You got a lot of really great training partners at Fortis MMA. Who are you mainly getting to work with for this camp in terms of bodies in the gym?
A lot of people. I work with Jeff a lot. I work with one of my really great training partners, Zumar. He's a great wrestler. But, man, I mix it up. I even spar with the little guys because I work on my feet. I work on my movement. I'm all about just being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to progress. I'm trying to get better. So whether it's inside or outside the octagon, this guy's always trying to get better. This guy is getting better, of course, but I can't do much without this guy. As I get older, I'm realizing what's really, really, really important. Like back in the day, everyone knew I used to have a thing with the media. I didn't like the media. I still kind of don't because I understand that most of the media, not you, most of the media, they're like leeches. They kind of suck off of these things that, people have to better themselves and make themselves look better. And they don't really get the news, the factual news. And I saw even Denzel Washington said it, they owe it to the people to deliver the news, but no one really cares anymore. So I stem away from that because I'm like, well, if they don't care, I don't care. I insulted people because I'm like, at the end of the day, you guys aren't paying my bills. These haters aren't paying my bills. These people that write these stupid quotes, they aren't paying my bills. So it redirected me to focus on what's really important. Unfortunately, there's no repercussion for this. So me being old school, I usually just smack a bitch, but I can't. So I'll just focus on what I need to do.
Very well said. You mentioned as well with Mike that you were living at the gym. Are you still doing that right now, or are you living like just off near it?
I wish I was in a gym because, I like that environment. I like that grit, that grind. I came from it. I was homeless years ago. I lived in a gym a couple of times. And for last year's, 2 or 3 fights that got canceled, I, isolated myself in the gym while the world was going to shit. I decided to just remain focused. And that's when I learned to kind of, sit my demons down and give them instructions. I had nowhere else to go but face those guys. They were around me. There was no other outlet but to face those guys, whether it's bad habits, negative affirmation, negativity, bad, decisions I've made. I had to really sit down with myself and kind of come to grip with myself.
How do you see the fight playing out on February 13th? Like, obviously you feel like you're going to win. Why sign the contract? But do you have an idea of how you think the fight could play out?
I mean, my intentions are to knock him out. For me to answer that question would just make me stupid. I don't follow that. I don't live in the future. I see the future, but I look at the future, I should say, but I don't live in it. I think the future just brings anxiety, and I believe the past just brings depression, because if you live there too long, you can't get out. And if you go in the future too much, then you set up expectations, and expectations are a way to fail. So I do as much as I can here. I control the narrative, the right now, the actions of it, because that's all I have. But I don't live in the future. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. No, I like the honesty. That's actually one of the things I really like about you, is that like literally what we see, on camera sometimes is usually what we get off camera as well. And I love that. I think that's very cool. One thing I did want to ask you, I know you mentioned that you had trained at King's MMA. Would you ever fight Marvin Vettori, or is that a fight you'd probably not want to take just because I don't know if you guys had a relationship or not when you were there?
Man, I met Marvin back when he didn't know anything. Marvin was just a great wrestler. We were training with Jason Manley, our jiu-jitsu coach at the time, in California. And I remember Marvin asking me for striking. I was teaching him, showing himself to striking. He's done a lot. He was being loud. Notice he's quiet now. So he's got to where he wanted to be. And he's ranked, number 4 or 5. So what created stuff like that is the ranking system, which is a joke. A bunch of I'm picturing a bunch of old men just sitting in a room and be like, "Oh, we're gonna give you number 3. We're gonna, That's how I'm picturing it, because I don't know who the fuck is in control of this dumbass ranking system." Mm-hmm. So if it happens from a business standpoint, I'm not gonna say no, because he would be in my way to get to where I need to be. We're all lions in a room filled with lions chasing that gazelle. Right now, the gazelle is owned by Izzy, and I'm trying to get Izzy. If there's any fucking fight I will do, I'll fucking fight him for free. That's the fight I want, because I'm so excited about that stylistic, dynamic lineup and matchup that I really want to get there. I don't want to fight someone that's going to hug me. I don't want to fight someone that's going to just outpoint me because they're looking at the judge. Fight is a fight, man. We're supposed to go out there and have fun. But Kelvin is in the same gym too. Me and Kelvin are best buds. They called us a couple times to fight each other, and we're like, fucking no, we're not fighting each other.
Right.
We've only agreed to fight each other only for the belt. But Marvin and I are cool. I don't know him too close, but every time we interact, one of the times in Vegas, we were at a party together, hanging out, drinking. So if it happens from a business standpoint, I'm sure we both agreed. I'm sure he wouldn't do it because I'm behind him, so it wouldn't make sense. He's trying to get to the title. But if it comes to the fact that we're neck and neck, fuck yeah, I'll fight him. I'll do it because, I'm trying to get to the belt. But I mean it in no disrespectful way. And if that's his way of representing himself to trash talk or whatever, that's fine. I know who I am, and I'm so happy about that and confident with it. And like I said, the goal remains the same. I'm trying to be champ.
Uriah, thanks so much for the time, man. Really appreciate it. Anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media you want to plug, I'll give you the last word.
I want to thank my mom for always believing in me, for giving me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. I want to thank me for believing in me and for keeping doing what I love to do. And I want to thank the loyal fans, who gets it, who don't have to be fucking weird to understand where I'm coming from. And I also want to thank the assholes, because without your support, it wouldn't push me. So keep on doing your thing.